Join the team.
Hey, theMCGuiRE Review, and today we're going to take a look at a little game called Dawn. Now, the details on this one, 2 to 5 players, so it's nice that we've got up to 5 players on this one. I think that's probably a good count for a game like this. We'll talk more about that here in just a minute. I think it would have got a little too unruly if it was more players than 5. But 2 to 5, there's 45, and I do feel like where the game will really shine is at that 3, 4, and 5 players. It does play well as a 2-player game. However, this is really a social deduction type game, and I think those types of games just work much better with the higher player count. But 5 is a real nice one on this one. 45-minute playtime, so it does play pretty quickly, and you can get through the games within that time or less. There's really cool artwork. It has here on the box beautiful artwork. That's one of the things they call out in their bullet points. And I would agree that there is really cool artwork that are on the cards. And it's marked at 14+. Frankly, anytime I see these ages, you can generally have kids much younger playing the game. And the artwork, there's nothing really here that's inappropriate by any means. It comes to us from Green Meadow Games for review, so it was sent over for that purpose. And it looks like they're based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, so that's pretty cool. The first thing that I will start with is the box. It is a very small form factor game, which is nice for travel. Because it's kind of a light social deduction game, I think this would be great for your work events, things from that nature. I think this is a great gateway game. It's very, very simple from that perspective. It does come in a really cool small little box, and it's got that little side, pull out with the little tab on there, and the box is a nice high quality cardboard with a nice, good, waxy kind of feel to it. So they really put a nice amount of work into the box and the design, and I always like to see that with these games. It travels well, right? So that's pretty cool. The quality of the cards, very high quality cards. They're really thick, high quality cards, okay? You are not going to be able to sleeve these cards and fit them back in here. Everything just fits perfectly right in this box, which is also nice. It's not jiggling and shaking all over the place. Everything fits tight and nice back in the box, but you're not going to be able to sleeve these. I don't know that you'd want to. Again, these are really, they're that much thicker card quality. They're probably about twice as thick as your standard playing card. I do find that once you kind of get them all separated and you do I like to shuffle by just putting them in a 7 different stacks. That's kind of what I like to do. But you can still shuffle these in smaller numbers like this if you want to. But again, these thicker cards are generally a little bit harder to shuffle. So just understand that. It is a thicker card quality. But I think it's good for a game like this where, everything's pretty much based with cards and there's not an enormous amount of them. So I'm glad to see that they went the extra mile and up in that component quality. Here is your rule book. It does come with a tiny little rule book. The rules are pretty straightforward. They're just a few pages here that you'll go through. And again, because the rule book is so small, if you were to put this in a normal size rule book, it probably would take 2 pages at most. So the rules are very short and straightforward. I think the text is large enough on this little book that I don't think most people would have an issue with it. But here is your rule book. It will come with some reference cards for each player, which is nice. On one side, you'll get what each of the resource cards actually do. There's 4 different types of symbols here. You have an attack card, a heal card, a spy card, and a wild card. We'll just read those real quick. So your attack card, you secretly look at 2 cards on the Great Building and remove one, optionally, from the game by discarding an attack resource card. So those attack cards will allow you'll play those when you need to attack different things that are going to be out here in these city building cards. It's actually threat cards and building cards that are going to be out here. You also can use their ability to do things with the great buildings that you have up here. And we'll explain the differences there. These are things that you attribute to over the course of gameplay that you add up at the end to see if you meet the totals of what is printed right on this card. It's very easy. To build this one, you need 18 of these little chests that are on cards that are there. As long as everybody has that, then you get 20 points, and this building is built. So it's very simple from that perspective. You can also attribute your cards to these little square tiles that are going to be out here. Some of them will be threats that look like this. There's three different types, the way that they look. There's bandits, there's barbarians, and there's these plagues. They do different things if you're not able to achieve what's printed right here on the card. And then you have these buildings that you attribute cards to. And if you get what it says that you need, there's a little icon up here with a chest. As long as you add up all the cards and they have that many chests, you then get the points that it's worth, and you won't reveal that until the very end of the game. So that's kind of the concept of this game. You're going to be allocating cards when it's your turn, either to these things that are sitting out in the center row or towards kind of that end game scoring of these bigger buildings that you're building and attributing to that you'll score at the end of the game. And that's really how the game is going to work. It is that simple. And then you can use these cards to do whatever ability that it says here. Again, the attack allows you to look at some cards secretly, take one out or not. The heal allows you to remove these wound cards from your hand or another player's hand. The spy card allows you to secretly look at what's a threat or a building really is, and only you can see that. And then a wild card can be used to do any of those things. And then on the other side of that resource card, you're going to get a reference. This is really just kind of for the number cruncher that plays this game that wants to know, well, how many of these types of cards are in the game, or that type of card. It tells you right here exactly the type of card, the cost of those different types of cards, and the values that are possible for that type of card. It also tells you what actually is available under each one of the types of threats. So a bandit of 3, so if it has 3 of the eye cards on it, you have to attribute 3 of the eye cards to be able to, take it out. If you don't, you may choose not to. When you flip it, it can either do nothing, wound everyone, or destroy a building. So that's what is on the back of this reference card. So that may help you decide where you want to lay cards and what you want to do, and sort of the gamble that you want to make as a player on actually achieving what it's asking for or not achieving it, and then flipping it over and seeing what happens. These buildings will look different as well in this deck, and some of them will look the same. But the things that are printed on the back will be different. So that just stops you from being able to kind of memorize, oh, it's that building. I know that building's worth 15. That building may be worth 15, it may be worth 10, it may be worth 6. So that's how that works. You can't really memorize them. They do have some of the same artwork, but they will have different rewards on the back of them. You will have your first player marker. This one is wooden in the version that I was sent, it's a little wooden player marker, and that will pass around the table. The first player will be determined based on the last person who has most recently built something. And then you also have these cards here with just different player artworks on them. Each player will get one of these, and that's the only purpose that it serves. Outside of the fact that this will serve kind of as your storehouse as well, when you play the game, the first thing you're going to do on your turn is you're going to take one of the cards from your hand secretly, and you're going to place it face down in your storehouse, and that'll just be under your player. You just kind of put that under your player card like that. And I'll explain why you would do that. But that's the purpose that this player card is going to serve. So now what we'll do is we'll kind of get into how you're going to go through your turn and why this game is like a social deduction game. Because when you play the game, you are going to essentially either stick with the allegiance that you want to be, or you may change over the course of the game. So how does that work? You're either going to be an ally or you're going to be a scoundrel. If you're an ally, it means you've kind of worked the whole course of the game to try to build and get as many of these prosperity points as you possibly can. And if you get enough of them, it would be 30 prosperity points per player. If you add all that up, so let's say there's 3 players, you need 90 prosperity points for the allies to win. So if you want to be an ally, and it looks like the game and the course of the game is going the route of allies potentially winning, you're going to want to keep trying to work together, or on your turn, trying to ensure that as many of these buildings get dealt with, as many of these threats get dealt with, and you get as many of these prosperity points as you can possibly get. So you win as an ally. You may, over the course of the game, decide, or maybe from the beginning you just want to be the scoundrel over the game. You're going to work to actually thwart the ability to be able to get prosperity points. So you're going to want to put cards in that don't really help take care of these threats, don't really help actually achieve getting the buildings, don't really help achieve getting points for these buildings here. And you're also, when you choose at the beginning of your turn to put one card in your storehouse under your player token, you're going to want to go with cards that have larger amounts of these chests on them. Every single card has chests printed on them. And if you don't want to be a scoundrel, you're going to choose cards, because you have to put one in your storehouse. You're going to choose cards that only have one chest on them. You want lower amounts of chests. How do you get determined to be a scoundrel? At the end of the game, if you have 7 or more chests in your storehouse, you're a scoundrel. If you have 6 or less, you're an ally. So if you want to play that ally allegiance, you're going to want to do those lower chests. If you want to go scoundrel, you're going to want to make sure you have more chests in your storehouse. And the reason to that is you may say, well, I just want to get to the point where I just have 7. Okay, well, that will make you a scoundrel. But at the end of the game, if there's more than one scoundrel, you win. You're like the number 1 scoundrel winner if, in fact, you have the most amount of chests in your storehouse. So that's how you kind of play that. If you go scoundrel, or if you end up being a scoundrel, you want to have the most chests in your storehouse to be the number 1 winner across the table. If you're an ally, that's kind of a shared win. There is no number 1 ally winner. The allies share the win. The scoundrels, there's only one winner, but there could be multiple scoundrels across the table. So that's where the social deduction aspect comes into this game, and where it can be very interesting. And I found you may start the game playing as like, you know what, I just want to be an ally, I want to attribute the cards, I want to help and heal other people around the table, and heal wounds in their hand. We'll talk about these wounds and what they do. And I don't want to be a scoundrel. But then over the course of the game, you may find out, well, it's more beneficial to me, I think, at this point, to actually be a scoundrel, and then you change your allegiance. And that can be very interesting over the course of gameplay, where almost sometimes I don't want to say it's a forced role change, because you can stick with the role that you want to be from the beginning of the game all the way to the end of the game and go for it, and you can still win one way or the other, right? So don't get me wrong there. It isn't like at some point you're going to find everybody around the whole table is just going to switch to be a scoundrel. That's happened before, and it's funny when it does, when like everybody ends up around the table trying to be the scoundrel, and then you have to go for like who has, because then there's only going to be one winner, right? Where if you got multiple people that go for allies and your ally points are achieved, you have multiple winners. So that's where this game is really fun from a social deduction perspective. Now in playing, you are going to have a little card here that's going. There's only one of these, which is going to show the turn order, and that's just kind of nice to sit out on the table and one person can kind of look over it if there's questions. And then on the back, it shows kind of how you win, just the rules that I went over there. Now, you are going to start the game, and you're always going to draw. You're always going to have 9 cards in your hand, but of those 9 cards, 2 of them are going to be these wound cards. And they all look the same. The only purpose of this wound card is it sits in your hand of 9s. That means you can only have 7 resource cards, because 9's the max. It sits in your hand. And all it does is it just keeps you from having the max number of resource cards. So they're just dunce cards in your hand, and that's the only purpose they serve. So you want to get these cards out of your hand over the course of gameplay. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is by utilizing, either as a player yourself, 3 of these heal cards. So these heal cards, that's the purpose of the overall card. It heals. Also have, the chests printed on them. And you'll see this on the side-by-side cam. They've got the chests printed on them. So, you're going to have to decide when it's your turn, well, do I, I've got these 3 heal cards here, and I don't have 9 cards. It's just for example. I have these 3 heal cards here. Do I just go ahead and play all 3 of these heal cards and discard them and and take one of these wounds out of my hand. Now it's out of my hand, and now I can draw 8 resource cards, and I only have 1 wound. Or do I hang on to those cards and I heal them? Because you can heal these wounds from another player's hand as well. You don't know if they're a scoundrel or an ally. You have no idea. But there might be reasons over the course of the game, if you think people are allies, to heal wounds from their hand so they can get more resource cards into their hand, attributing to these buildings and to these great buildings, therefore earning more of the prosperity points. So these wound cards are an interesting mechanic over the course of the game as well. Or do you not heal those wounds and, hey, I got all these chests from these cards, so maybe I want to just apply them all to one of these building cards that requires chests and ensure one of these buildings get built. So there's kind of a choice as a player you're going to be making over the course of round after round. Okay? So it's nice to see that these cards, as simple as they are, just being green, red, blue, or yellow, and only having these single symbols of like I can heal, or I can play a card to look at something, or I can play a card to try to like look at what's under these cards and remove one if I want, or I can use them for the chests to attribute trying to earn the cards. And that's really the two things that you can use with these cards as you play. It's very, very simple from that perspective. Okay, you are going to shuffle all these together. You've got your threat cards and you've got your building cards. You'll shuffle them all together and you'll make a stack. And then you'll put a number of them out in front of you at the table. These 4 always stay here, okay? You'll put a number of them out in front of you at the table depending on how many people are playing. So let's say that number was 5. And let's say these were all shuffled up. Maybe, want to come out and it'd be a plague card. And maybe want to come out and it'd be one of these bandit cards. And then let's say like a few buildings came out. So it's like this building and, this building and another one that looks just the same, that costs the same. And let's say it's this building right here. Let's say all of this came out for the round, okay? And at the end of the round, after you resolve these, you're going to resolve buildings and then you're going to resolve threats. So what's going to happen over the course of play is it's going to be your turn. You're going to play as many cards and do as many things as you possibly can. And then it will pass to the next person. It isn't like, well, I get to play one card and then they get to play one card. You're going to do everything that you possibly can, and then you're going to pass, and then you're going to discard whatever's left in your hand, and then you'll draw back up to your hand limit. You're not going to get rid of your wounds. Those kind of stay with you, but you'll be able to draw back up to your hand limit. Now, which is 9, right? Including your wound cards. So over the course, you're going to be saying, okay, well, this is 8, and I've got, okay, here's a card that's got 2 chests on it, so I want to build that, so I'm going to put that there. And then, here's one with 3, so that's 1, 2, that's 5. So I'll go ahead and just put 2 there. By the time it gets around, maybe there'll be other people that will attribute to that. So that's good for me. There is a threat here. I don't really know what it does, but I do have a green card, and this just takes 4 green cards. So I have a green card, so I'll just go ahead and put 1 green card there. And then here's a bandit. I want to take care of that. It takes 4 blue cards. I have 1 in my hand here, so I'll put that there. Let me get to my 9 cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's just do this right. 9. So, I can't do anything with my. I'm not going to heal anything right now. Let's see. Maybe this larger one of these great buildings here. This great building takes a bunch of green cards and it gives me something. Gives me 10 per ally without wounds. I'm going to go ahead and attribute 1 card to that. I have a wild here that's worth 2 chests. I'm going to go ahead and put that one on this one right here. And then I have this green that says it's -2 chests. So I'm going to go ahead and put that one in my storehouse because I'm feeling like allies the way to go right now, and that I kind of work down those. And then, I have my 2 cards here left. And then I'll go ahead and I'll draw back up. I'll draw back up to my hand limit. It kind of goes to the next person, right? And then that's going to be my turn. And that's going to go around the whole table. And you only do that for 5 rounds, okay? The 6th round, you don't do these. You only attribute cards to these great buildings, and then you score everything that's been done for the whole game. So let's go back to our individual rounds. So we go all the way around. Everybody else is going to be just laying cards down like that, right? And you don't really know what anybody has laid. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to deal with these. You're not going to do anything with this until the end of the game. So you're going to deal with these. You're going to deal with buildings first. You're going to take the stack under the building, and you're going to shuffle them up so you have no idea the order of the cards that have been laid and who contributed what. Because, again, you want to hide those. You know, are you a scoundrel? Are you an ally? Then you're going to flip them over, and you're going to look, and you're going to add up all the chess symbols and see, did we reach 8 or did we not? If we did not reach it, that building is just discarded. If we did reach 8, we're going to set that building up here. We're not going to reveal how many points that building is worth until the end of the game. Okay? We're just going to set that building up here. Right? Then after we've done all the buildings that way, we're then going to do the threats. So we'll start with this threat, and we'll turn over all these cards. And hey, is there 4 green ones? Let's say that there was. Okay, threat was taken care of. But we'll turn it over and we'll look up. All players get a wound. Well, all players don't get a wound because we took care of the threat. But if we didn't take care of that threat and we turned it over, all players would get a wound. Sometimes it would say does nothing, but this one says that we all got a wound. But let's just say for demo purposes, we have 4 green cards here. We took care of the threat. We're good to go. Let's go over here. Well, we need 4 of these eyeball purple cards. Well, let's flip all our cards over and let's say, well, we only had 3 blue cards and we had 2 more red cards and we had another green card. So it looks like there's someone already trying to ensure that this thing goes through successfully. Interesting. So we flip it over and it says first 2 players get a wound. Now, you could be working against yourself here by not trying to take care of this, but sometimes when you flip these over, it says one of the buildings get destroyed. And if you're a scoundrel, you want that to happen because those buildings, when you flip it over at the end of the game, are going to be worth these prosperity points. And you don't want the allies getting a bunch of prosperity points. So there's a little gamble there as well if you're playing kind of that scoundrel side right out of the gate, where it could kind of work against you if, in fact, you're one of the first 2 players. First 2 players get a wound, right? Nobody else does. So you just don't know until you flip that card over. Outside of, remember our reference card here will tell you under there what the different things could happen depending on the difficulty level of each one of these threats, and the difficulty level being indicated by how many little icons are on the bottom. Sometimes you need, for a bandit, you could have a 3 icon card or a 4 icon card. Okay, tells you right there what could potentially happen. So you're going to have to weigh that as well as a player when you make your decision in where you allocate your card. Okay, that's how the whole game works. It's that simple. Again, you're going to do that 5 times, 5 rounds. So your rounds could go pretty quickly as well. It's why it's only marked as a 45-minute game. After everybody knows how to play this game, you've played a few games, the games do work pretty fast because you kind of have an idea based on kind of where you want to lay your cards. And then when you get to that 6th round, the only difference is you're not going to allocate out this row of cards. These are now done for the game. It's only going to be attributing cards to these great buildings that you have here. And then once that's over and you've gone all the way around, you're just simply going to flip over all of your buildings that you've been built, that have been built over the course of the game, add up all those points. You're going to shuffle these cards, flip them over, see if you meet what it's calling for here at the bottom of the card. If you do, you then get those prosperity points. And you're then going to, each player is going to reveal their alliance by showing what's in their storehouse here. And you're going to see they're either less than 7 or greater than 7. That's going to indicate them as being either an ally or a scoundrel. And then you'll go through those win conditions that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. And that is Dawn. I think it's a really cool social deduction game. I do like this one. I stated at the beginning that, there's one more little thing I'll talk through here. I stated at the beginning that I don't know if this one would have been great if it would have went into that 6, 7, and 8 players. I do like to see that 8 player count for social deduction games like this. I think they work really well for the most part. But I think if you would have got into an 8 player count, it would have been a lot more difficult, I think, to scale the things that are printed on the card of like what it needs to achieve. There would just been so many cards that would have been put down. I think that's where it would have been difficult to kind of scale that mathematically across the cards to make it work for like 2 players or 8 players, right? That would have been a little bit more difficult. So I think this one is a really, really well-balanced 5-player social deduction game, and I think 5-player count was the right player count for this game. So if you're looking for a 5-player count social deduction game, I think this is a great one. I would definitely look into this for your collection to pick this up. Just small form factor, really fun, and I finding out who goes the scoundrel and who doesn't, and that change for you as a player, like you may decide to change your strategy of your alliance over the course of gameplay, I think is really, really fun for you as an individual player, even outside of the reveal at the end of the game of, oh, I knew you were a scoundrel, or I thought you were a scoundrel, but you're really an ally. That's a fun piece, but it's also a fun piece as the actual player yourself going through that journey as you play the game. So that's pretty fun too. The other thing that I thought was a nice little add, it's not a legacy component, but it was a fun way of saying, hey, open this, they're little sealed envelopes, open this envelope, open when a player has won the game as a scoundrel 3 times. So you'll kind of mark, you'll check off 1, 2. Oh, this game someone won as a scoundrel for the 3rd time, so now we can open this envelope. Open when you've built the Oracle 3 times. The Oracle is this building right here. It's this building with the little columns on it. That's considered the Oracle once it's built 3 times. And it's difficult to build it. It's worth 30 prosperity points. You need a ton of these blue cards to build it. And you remove 1 blue card for every wild, every yellow, or every green healing card that's placed there. So again, if you're a scoundrel, you're going to be wanting to place yellow and green cards there to offset and remove these blue cards at the end of the game. So that 30, I think that's the most points you can get with one of these cards is the Oracle, the 30 points. However, if you're able to build the Oracle 3 times, so 3 different games it's been able to be built, then you can open this special little envelope. And what's in these envelopes is more of these types of cards, okay? It's this card that comes out. So that's pretty cool. I thought it was a neat way to bring people back to the table to play this game over and over again. So this was a nice concept to say, well, I want to play Dawn again, not just because it was a fun game, because I'm trying to unlock these envelopes and get what I need to unlock these envelopes to get the cards that are in here. So that was a pretty cool concept, I thought, when I opened the game and I saw these envelopes. At first I thought it was this legacy style thing, but it's not. It's essentially just gaining more cool stuff the more you play this game. And that was smart, I think, from a design perspective, and it makes you want to bring the game back to the table over and over again. Okay, so that definitely was included here with this. Team, that is done. I think I've hit kind of all the things that I would want to hit from a review perspective. I do think it's very cool. If you're interested in getting your hands on this game, you can go to Green Meadow Games website. They have it right there on the website. You can purchase this. I think there's a standard edition as well as a deluxe edition, I want to say, that you can get. There's also some play mats and some other things you can get if you really want to kind of deluxify your Dawn experience. But you can pick up the game right there on the website if this is something that interests you and you think it's cool. I do recommend it. I think it is a good game from a social deduction perspective, and it does offer something a little bit different within this space. Team, keep rolling them crits. This has been the McGuire Review, and we'll see you next time.